Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you were listening or watching, however you were listening or watching. Thank you for tuning in to episode 42 of the 101 podcast, where everyone is entitled to their own wrong opinion. I am your host, Mr. Good Call, Vinnie Paul, the Cuban Cowboy. That's right, everybody. And joining us today for episode 42, I know her as a comedian, but today we're going to talk a little more about meditation. We're going to bring some relaxing mindfulness to the conversation today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Shannon DiCarlo, everybody. Say hello, Shannon.
Hey everybody, I'm Shannon and I am a mindfulness and meditation teacher, as well as a comedian. So I'm so happy to be talking about this other part of my life with Vinnie. So yeah, I'm just happy to be here. So happy.
So why meditation? I gotta ask, because I'm a skeptic. I'm a huge skeptic of things that are really calm, because I don't know if you've met me, I'm a very intense personality.
I would say
Who would have guessed it, right? Who would have guessed it? So for me, meditation seems like this unicorn of an idea that I've never been able to wrap my head around. I've tried sitting alone and thinking about nothing for 30 seconds or a minute at a time. So why meditation? Tell me about your journey to peace and why you're on it.
Yeah, so I actually love that you're a skeptic, because that is one of the biggest reasons I created the Journey to Peace YouTube channel, because every time I mention meditation, I get one of two reactions. Either one, it's, oh, cool. Okay. Tell me a little bit more about that. And the other one is, oh, so are you a vegan? Do you not shave your armpits? What's the deal? It's like there's such a, I think, a stigma around meditation, and that you have to be this certain type of person, or you have to be on a certain diet in order to be a meditator. And also, like you said, what is meditation? I can't sit here, alone with my thoughts for 5 minutes like that. I'm a go kind of person. And really, at the bare bones, and something that I love, that I hope that my channel really shows through science and things like that, and we can get into that later, but is that meditation is the act of bringing your full attention to an activity. That's all it is. It could be any activity. So you don't necessarily have to sit in a cross-legged position and be quiet for 5 minutes and sort of go inward. You can. That is, one piece of meditation, but you could be doing the dishes. And where we're normally on autopilot with those types of activities, you could choose to bring your full attention to that activity. And you could say okay, let me actually be present here. What does the soap smell like? What is the temperature of the water? And watch your hands do this this activity that's so on autopilot. You start to realize oh my gosh, I've done this 100 times, to the point where now my hands already know to scrub the dish, put it under the water, rinse it, put it in the dishwasher. But if you really bring your attention to that activity, and you start to listen to the water and smell the soap and watch what your hands are doing, that's meditation even.
So for those people that have a lot going on when they're washing the dishes and cleaning the plates and everything else, sure, they're smelling the soap and they're scrubbing and they're feeling everything, and it's a monotonous activity that their body is used to. Can distractions take away from that experience? Can a baby crying or a phone ringing or the television in the background, does that take away from the experience? And is meditation more of a focused and clear everything out kind of?
It's a constant bringing your focus back to whatever activity you've chosen to focus on. Okay. So obviously, if your baby's crying, you might want to go bring attention to that. But, that's the whole beauty of it is, yeah, we live in the real world. It's not always going to be the perfect place. It's not in time to meditate. So that's why I like to tell people, when you're doing everyday activities, you're already doing these things, walking your dogs, doing the dishes, whatever it is that you do on a daily basis, try to bring your full attention to the activity. Even if the TV's on, that's your attention. Then your brain is going, hey, wait, the TV's on. You should bring your attention to that. But it's your choice to then say, no, I really want to bring my focus back to this activity that I've chosen. And that doing that over and over and over again, all of a sudden, after, who knows, sometimes it's days, weeks, months, depending on how diligent you are about bringing your focus back to that activity. Some people bring their focus to their breath, which is like the more sort of traditional meditation that you might be thinking of, is like, oh, someone sits down and they breathe. And it's kind of like, for someone like you said, you're like, that sounds like my nightmare. So I can't just sit here and be still. Well, don't be still. Do your meditation when you're, I don't know, writing your scripts or writing your shows, or and really bring your focus to that activity. And when you do that over and over and over again, and remind yourself, that's the very first step, is to just notice that your mind is somewhere else and choosing to bring it back to whatever activity that you're doing. That's the very first step of meditation.
So even if I'm writing a set, if I'm writing a comedy set and I'm really focusing on it, I close the doors, no matter what else is going on, I shut out the world around me and I'm pen to paper. Is that considered meditation if that's my focus and that's what I'm really concentrating my mental acuity on?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would wonder, though, if you checked in with yourself just randomly while you were writing your script, are you fully writing that script, or has your mind wandered at all? Like, have you started to think about, oh, should I be getting, whatever for dinner, or should I be doing this?
It totally wanders. It totally
and
wanders.
So that's where you would say, wait.
The best part about it is I can bring it back. Bring it back. Because, I work for a full time. So when I'm working, that's my focus. But when I get home, even if I want to put pen to paper and write things down, there's all these other things going on that I couldn't focus on 8 hours ago because I was working, and now all those synapses are firing, saying, hey, by the way, don't forget about me. Don't forget about me. Don't forget about me. But in the meantime, I'm still trying to jot down the ideas in my head.
And you constantly being present to all those, like you called it. I love that analogy of these sort of past things that are trying to get your attention. That's what your brain is doing constantly, is it's trying to grab your attention with different, like you said, the TV, or it might be these things that you're thinking about from the past or from your day. But just the act of you recognizing that your brain is trying to do that and then bringing it back to your activity, which for you is writing, that is you being mindful. I would say that that's more being mindful than like saying that you're in a meditative state, but mindfulness is definitely very beneficial, almost as beneficial as meditation is. And it's almost like the first step into meditation at that point.
Because mindfulness at the end of the day is just, would you agree that it's just kind of being aware, but being able to compartmentalize?
I think it's also being present, being fully present. I think it's being mindful of, like you said, being mindful of where is your brain trying to pull you, and being mindful of that. And then you making the choice to actually say, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I actually want to pay attention to this activity. That's sort of being mindful of what your brain is doing. And a lot of us aren't mindful of that. A lot of us do autopilot. We're on autopilot 16 hours a day and we don't even realize it. And I think that when you start to be mindful, you start to even recognize that something's pulling you, whether it's thoughts from the past, thoughts of the future. That's you not being fully present. And that's where you're not sort of being mindful of being present.
So
honestly, and I'll say that's where anxiety thrives, is in the past and in the present.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are present, typically, if you look around and you kind of take note of what are there any threats? Like, no, there are no present threats. That was all these things that I was thinking about from the past that's creating anxiety or guilt or what have you. Or when you're thinking in the future, anxiety thrives on that because your brain is wanting to protect you, and your brain is wanting you to think of all the possible things that could go wrong or that did go wrong, so that it can protect you to do things differently in the future.
Well, and it's good that our brain does that for us because, well, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because it protects us from things that could cause us harm, but it also causes us anxiety for things that possibly could not cause us harm.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say that, when you do research, which you kind of asked me sort of why meditation, and I do want to speak a little bit to my journey and why I've decided to share this with the world, which I will sort of go ahead and say that it's been scary. It's been scary to put myself out there in that way. With comedy, yes, my comedy was observational. So it was about my life. And I did say, my material was typically stories from my life. But that wasn't as scary as talking about sort of the internal struggles. Like that's a very different
Oh, yeah, that's a
part of
totally
me.
different conversation.
Yeah, and it's very scary, but I get up every day and say, if this helps just one person, if this changes one person's mind to say that, there's light at the end of this tunnel, then my job's done. And that was sort of the purpose of creating this, of sharing my journey. And again, I do want to say, I want to make sure that the listeners know that I am not a clinical psychologist or I'm not a licensed therapist. I am a meditation and mindfulness teacher. And so the reason why I want to say that is because really what I want to share with the world is just my particular journey with my mental health, which has been anxiety and OCD. And so really, I created the Journey to Peace channel to sort of serve as a safe place for people of all different backgrounds, all different walks of life to go to find a little bit of peace in their lives. And I started to notice too that people, I think, see me in a certain way, and they see this person who's very put together, who has a really great job, who, maybe some people have called me brave or fearless because I do comedy and I do, I kind of put myself out there. I do different things that most people, public speaking is like the top fear.
People hate that.
People hate it. So when they see us comedians get up there, they're going, oh my God, like you must be so brave and all these things. But even so, that doesn't mean that, mental health comes in all different shapes, sizes. It comes in all different times in your life. Like you may have never experienced anxiety, but then all of a sudden something has happened in your life and you're starting to experience, let's say, a pandemic. And all of a sudden you start to feel these anxious feelings that you never felt before. So wherever you are in your journey, whether you've been, struggling with it for a while or if it's new to you, I wanted to create a space where people could see someone who looks put together or what have you, and see that, we all have stuff going on. And this is how I've found peace, is through meditation, because scientifically, well, I've done a lot of research on the matter because, I'm a fighter and when I was, in my darkest times with struggling with anxiety and OCD, some days I couldn't get out of bed. But every single day I would say, this will not beat you. Like you are a fighter. And I would get up anyway. And I, didn't want to go to work some days, but it was like, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm just going to have to push through it.
And it's funny that you mentioned that you do comedy would you consider yourself an introvert?
What's funny is that most people who meet me are shocked to know or to hear that I would consider myself an introvert.
And see, I met you in the comedy scene. You were very just social and civil, and you just had this air about you that made people attracted to you. Not just like you had this good energy.
Yeah.
For me to know you all these years later and know that there was anxiety and OCD and that you're fighting through all these things behind it, it just creates this whole different respect for you. Not only because a lot of comedians are introverts and they just go up on stage to release a little bit of anxiety. Right. But for someone to recognize that anxiety, completely separate it from the performance side of it and say, I want to center myself and be more mindful about it, that just takes the range of your personality and character just through the roof.
Thank you so much. And Vinnie, you are always you're someone, and for those of you who don't know, Vinnie and I did meet in the comedy circle, and our comedy styles are very different. And it's so interesting but I remember the first day I met you, we were strangers, and you came up to me and just said, hey, you killed it. And gave me like a handshake. And back when we could give handshakes and, right. And ever since then, I've known you to just be someone who just really builds people up, which is why I'm so happy to be here, because I love that energy and that light. Like you can't always see someone's light. That light is in everybody. And you discover your light when you meditate. I will say you start to sort of rediscover yourself when you meditate. and you discover that you are not your thoughts, you are not your fears, your anxieties, you are something so much greater. And you have this beautiful, beautiful light inside of you. And some of us can access that a little bit easier through whatever. It may be just that you're confident and that there have been people in your life that have built you up, or it could be through meditation, which is where I've sort of found my light and confidence. But Vinnie, yours definitely has always been very strong, just because you can tell you build people up and you want people to succeed. And I think that's really special.
And it's crazy. Everybody thinks I'm a negative person, but that's impossible because my blood type is B positive.
Ah, that's hilarious.
I had to sneak one joke in there.
Well, you know what's funny though too? That actually that's a really great segue into how people perceive you and how you want to be perceived. And also that's sort of what kind of inspired me to create this YouTube channel around my journey to peace, because people perceive me as this very put together person, this very confident woman who also in my professional life, I have a really great job and I'm a leader and I lead like a very large team and motivational and all these things. But that does not mean that I'm not struggling some days more than others, I don't want people to suffer in silence anymore. That's the thing, is that, when you break your arm, people can see that you have broken your arm and they can understand that, oh, you have to take medicine in order to fix, in order to heal. And they also may even be able to go, oh, I can probably understand what that may feel like because I've stubbed my toe before, or I've broken a finger, I've done something. So I can kind of understand what you're going through. With mental health, it's a very personal battle. It's invisible. And if you've never experienced the particular area that someone's struggling in, it's very hard for you to understand really fully what they're going through. And that's another thing that I wanted to just surface and just talk about it, have a conversation around it and say, look, I've had some really, really dark periods of my life because of anxiety and OCD. And I didn't even know what it was back then until I started really researching the brain and figuring out the science behind why our brain is wired this way. And then speaking to everyone from a hypnosis to a therapist, to a psychologist, to a psychiatrist, to a meditation.
You've done hypnosis?
I've done hypnosis.
That's how severe it is? Would you recommend hypnosis? Again, that's another thing I'm skeptical of.
You know what, too? And I was skeptical as well. And I was actually scared of it because I was going, I don't know what's in this. I almost wanted my husband to like listen to it first to make sure they weren't doing any weird subliminal messages. Right. Because I'm like, wait a minute. But when you're in that space, you'll almost try. Well, for me, I would try anything because I'm going, I need to get out of this and I will get out of this, is what brought me through, was that I'm just a fighter. I'm just going, I will not let this consume me. Absolutely not. So I'm going to try everything. And there were certain periods of like, okay, I'm at the point now where, yes, I'm skeptical of hypnosis, but let's see what happens. What I found to be with hypnosis was that it's just a more, I think, like a deeper meditative state. It wasn't a fix. I didn't walk out of there after a hypnosis, and I've done quite a few sessions, and I didn't walk out of there healed or anything like that, but I did kind of get to a very deep meditative state. I think you would have to really trust the hypnosis, the person who's doing it, and make sure that, the message that they're trying to get is aligned with what you are trying to solve for. So for instance, if you're not trying to bring up any kind of past trauma, I would definitely make sure that that's not what they're trying to dig into, because they're getting into a very deep sort of meditative state from you. But yeah, I would say that if you are looking just to try anything, who knows, it might work for somebody. You might tap into something that you really needed to tap into. For me, it was just, it was nice to be like meditative in that way. And like we would, for me, I love visualization meditations where, you walk through like a forest and you can kind of really, because I'm such a visual person and such a creative person, that to me, like when you meditate and you're being, walked through, and I have a lot of visualization meditations on my channel because of that. And I love writing the scripts for it because it's like just your imagination. But when I like in a meditative state, when I pick up a rock, in this sort of imaginary world, and you transfer all your negative thoughts to the rock and then throw it into a river and watch them float away. To me, that's more impactful of a meditation when I'm trying to really separate myself from negative thoughts or anxiety feelings. that's so powerful to me because I'm such a visual person. But again, it kind of depends on who you are and what you're looking for and where you are in your journey.
So speaking of journeys, your webpage for YouTube is Journey to Peace, not Journey through Peace, which I thought was unique because I would think that, you know, you're obviously fighting to achieve peace, so it would be a fight through it, and then at the end, you would arrive. But your webpage for YouTube is Journey to Peace, and through it, you talk about everything from 1 minute meditations, you have guided meditations, you have intention settings for just really like the science behind inner peace, the science behind Sunday blues, like all sorts of crazy stuff. So for me, and for those out there who are viewing, if I wanted to center myself and start this journey, how do I start meditation? What's the best way to get into the first 15 seconds of mindfulness, or the first 30 seconds, or the first minute of really getting in tune with yourself?
I think to me, it depends on who you are. And so I would advise that if for you, you want to know the science behind it first so that you can kind of take all that, like you said, that skepticism out of it. And you just want to know the science behind what happens in your brain when you meditate. I would recommend watching one of my science videos so that you can see that this isn't just, no matter, you know, wherever you're coming from. And if you are a skeptic of meditation, like maybe you've just, I don't know what your preconceived ideas are on it, but it will really strip away the thought that there has to be a religion tied to it, that there has to be some sort of lifestyle tied to it. And
because a lot of the
yeah,
meditation is like Buddhist and Taoist and those sort of things. So people think that it's a godly communication. It's not. It's a personal communication.
in my opinion, it's absolutely not. It does not have to be. If you want it to be, you absolutely. Praying is a meditation. I mean, when you pray, you're meditating and your focus is whoever or whatever you are praying to. Whereas what I try to be very intentional about on the Journey to Peace YouTube channel is that I try really hard not to connect it to anything like that, because that's what I wanted to be very different about my channel. I want to reach more people, you know, that like yourself. Like I want to reach people who it would benefit, who would benefit from it without tying a religion to it, without talking about Buddhism, without, you know, I'm almost, in some of my videos, I say namaste, and sometimes I don't, because I don't want that to turn anyone off and think that, oh no, this is like a religious thing, or this is a spiritual sort of, you know, woo-woo thing, for lack of better words. It's like, no, this is actually backed by science. Like, I don't know what to call it, but it's actually backed by science. And so if you want to start there, I would start there. And then I would, depending on who you are, I would highly recommend the 1 minute meditation, which it's one of my videos that has the most views. And I think there's a reason for that, because I think there's a lot of people out there, and it makes sense, that don't want to sit for 15 minutes or don't even have the time to sit. And like you said, there could be things going on. There could be a baby, there could be a TV, there could be someone's coming through the door, the UPS guy, you know, sometimes there's so many distractions that if you're new to this, I would highly recommend the science videos first, just to kind of strip away all your sort of preconceived notions on what meditation is. And then start with the 1 minute. You can sit for 1 minute. And the good news is
I could try.
You could try, and it's guided. So at least I'll keep bringing you back. At least there's someone to listen to. And that's something that I noticed when I started meditating, was that I could not, my brain goes 100 miles a minute. I'm constantly thinking, rethinking. I'm in the past, I'm in the future. I'm like all over the place. I'm thinking of comedy skits. I'm thinking of what my next video is going to be about. I mean, my brain is very similar, where it's like, I'm always thinking. I can barely shut it off. So when I first started, it was excruciating to think of sitting for 10 full minutes in silence with myself. And which is kind of interesting, right? Like, why can't we sit with ourselves in silence for 10 minutes? That's a whole nother video. What's that?
We're social creatures. We're meant to interact with our community. So it's like, it seems to me like human nature, like meditation, I wouldn't say it's opposite of human nature, because human nature is to be social and civil. But meditation seems like it's kind of the opposite, where you just kind of separate yourself from everything that's going around, and maybe you do your cross leg thing, maybe you do the whatever
Or
it
maybe
is.
you just lay there. Maybe you
Or
just
maybe
sit
you
there.
just lay
It's
there,
totally up to you.
or maybe I just lay in my lazy chair and just look up at the ceiling for
100%.
a minute at a time.
You don't even have to close your eyes. You really
Right.
don't have. And in my videos, I'll typically say, if you want, or there's some sort of like verbiage that I use, like if you're ready, or if you want, you can close your eyes, but you absolutely do not have to close your eyes. You could just sit, as long as you keep bringing your attention back to my voice, or back to the music, or back to your breath, whatever your focal point is. And even if you did it for 1 minute a day, scientifically it has been proven that it enhances your mental well-being. There are things happening in your brain, like you and I talked about a little bit before. There's this concept that's called, it's not a concept, but it's a fact, is that
Wiring and
when
wiring.
neurons fire together, they wire together.
Right.
So if you have been firing the same neurons over and over for 30 years, or however old you are, and it's these things, this trigger, this something triggers you.
How dare you call me older than 30?
Well, I'm older than 30, so I just said, hey, I'm actually thinking of myself. No, I still know you're young and full of energy. But yeah, so it's like, for me, for 33 years, I've been firing the same neurons over and over and over again, where it's like, oh, this trigger creates anxiety. And so they wire together. So now every time that trigger pops up, I have anxiety. Well, what meditation will do is, when that pops up, or mindfulness, even when that pops up, if you recognize it and don't put any weight on it, and you just say, oh, that's just a thought, just like the other hundred thousands of thoughts I've had today, but for some reason my brain just happens to latch onto this one, and you don't pay attention to it, and you just let it float away like a cloud in the sky, your neurons eventually, if you do that enough times, will start to recognize, like, oh, that's not a threat anymore. We can let that go. And that's the beauty of neuroplasticity, if you ask me, which is the brain's ability to change. And that's the
it's
hope.
the brain molding itself to what you're
Absolutely.
forming it to.
Absolutely. Another analogy that's interesting when we talk about the neurons that fire together, wire together, is if you think about a river or a stream that's been flowing for 30 years, it's going to have a pretty divot, like a divot, right? Like it's going to have, like, it's kind of not as shallow anymore. It's pretty deep now. And now you're asking that river to change course. And you're asking that river to very slowly, one trickle at a time, to kind of, sort of redirect its way of flowing. So
like putting up a dam.
Right. That's not easy, but it can be done. It can be done.
So with me, if I wanted to start meditation, because I'm an active listener, would it be easier to do a guided meditation, or something that's more personal, where I just do it myself and I force myself to sit alone without outside encouragement?
I think that, and if you have to use the word force, I think that you shouldn't do anything that it requires force. I think that it should be easy for you. I think it should be fun. So for instance, like I definitely, for you, I would just recommend the 1 minute guided meditation. That way you can listen to somebody, you feel that connection.
Right.
So the fact that for you, you're thinking meditation is like, I'm a social being. I don't want to be, I want to be with people. I want to talk to people. Well, you kind of, in guided meditations, are experiencing this with the person that just wrote the meditation, is doing the meditation, is sort of like talking you through it. So you may feel even more of a connection that way. And it's just for 1 minute. So then all of a sudden, before you know it, it's done. And if you do that every single day, even 1 minute, it'll be beneficial.
Well, for me, that seems backward, because isn't meditation about centering and focusing and shutting out the outside world?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Meditation is just about bringing your focus to
one item,
to some focal point. So it could be my voice, it could be your breath. And there are periods in the guided meditation where it's about a minute. No, well, not in the 1 minute meditation, but let's say in a 5 minute meditation, there might be about 30 seconds to a minute where you are left with silence, for you to really practice on bringing your focal point back to your breath, so that you can have that personal experience. And the one thing that you made me think of was, when you talk about, is this going against our human nature to be social beings? Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard that sort of, I don't know, advice or term of where they say, in order to love someone else fully and completely, you must first love yourself fully and completely?
Yes.
Same thing with meditation. When you go in and you really start to sort of be reintroduced to yourself, and you start to become confident, and you start to see that light inside of you, and it does happen even through guided meditation, and you start to let go of the thoughts that no longer serve you, you become a more sort of almost like the best version of yourself to give to others.
Trust me, there's a lot of my exes that would love to see that version. One of them had bipolar depression and anxiety.
Really?
So I'm sure that for me to transfer those thoughts to her, and for her to transfer those thoughts to herself would be great. She actually was a psychologist and still had depression and anxiety, and still never found the connection between recognizing it, being aware of it, and dealing with it. So I know all too well what we're discussing now, but the meditation, we never brought into it because it was never something that we considered.
Well, and you know what is, I discovered it through research. I wanted to know the scientific reason why I was feeling this way. So I got every book on how the brain works, neuroscience. I just really dug myself I threw myself into research around the brain, and I realized, or through my research, that wait a minute, the brain can change. I'm not stuck with this. Well, how does it change? And then I'm telling you, book after book after book mentioned this meditation, this sort of like this practice of meditation. And if you think about, if you do want to, like, if you did any research on Buddhism, and you think about these monks who they say like they can sort of, they feel less pain is what I don't know if you've ever heard that, like where they can, like not have anesthesia and get a surgery or something like that. And they can be completely in a meditative state, so much so that they don't feel the pain.
That's intense.
And so and now there's also this, I'm going to have a video about this soon, because it was so interesting to me, around why they say that when you meditate and you sort of really master meditation, why they say that you feel less pain. It's not that you're feeling less pain. It's that there's a primary pain response in your brain, and then there's a secondary pain response. And what happens is, and I want you to try this next time you stub your toe on the side of your bed, because we all know that's the worst feeling.
It's gonna happen tonight. I'm gonna have a whiskey.
It's gonna happen tonight. It's when you least expect it. The idea behind this, like, oh, people who meditate, especially, and now not just people who meditate, but those who have mastered the art of meditation, like a Buddhist monk, for instance, who that's what they have devoted their lives to. So, they have a lot of time to sit here and practice and on that meditation. It's really that so if I stub my toe, God forbid, in the middle of the night, and the pain response is, it's sending up to your brain saying, ow, you just hurt yourself and there's pain happening. The secondary response is how you react to the pain. So it's when you pull up your foot and you go, you curse the world, and you're so upset. God, I cannot believe this.
My mother's watching this. I don't curse.
So I know, I was gonna say, I'm not sure what the audience is, so I'll keep it clean, but even though I know I'm talking to Vinnie Paul. No. And so if you, next time you stub your toe or something, if you have some sort of pain that has happened to you physically, like if whatever, you have a sore muscle, or I don't know what it is, something like that. Stub your toe is the best example I have. Instead of reacting to it, try your hardest to not react. Just let the pain be there without the reacting part, because that's the secondary pain response. And that's what actually is sending more signals to your brain saying this is more painful than it actually is.
Right.
And so that's kind of interesting too, if you think about it. Like even that exercise you could do tonight, the next time you stub your toe. And if you just really quickly remind yourself, don't react, all of a sudden you'll realize, oh, it doesn't actually hurt as bad as it usually does.
So can I stub my toe right now?
I wouldn't recommend you hurting yourself. Don't react.
Respond. Don't react.
Don't react at all. Don't respond to it. Don't curse at it. Don't. And you'll sort of start to realize
it's not that bad.
It's not as bad as when in the middle of the night, before when you've done it, when you go, oh my God, this is the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. That's you basically telling your brain that it's sort of, what's the word? Encouraging your brain or sort of, it's already sending signals to your brain that, hey, there's pain there, but you're sending even more by saying, oh, it hurts. Oh my gosh, you know.
But you know what's crazy? There's a difference, because in the middle of the night, you're not expecting it. Here, I was prepared for it and it was planned.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the night, when things stir up and you're not expecting them, that's a completely different response, because your body is just expecting to follow the path that your brain is telling it to go to.
I'm telling you, and you know what? My husband stubbed his toe the other day and he wasn't expecting it. And I said, don't react, don't react. I said, just try not to react, because he wasn't expecting it. Just try not to react. And he was going, you know, his face is getting like, oh. And sure enough, he was like, weird. The pain went away much quicker than when it normally does. I'm saying it's because it's science, backed by science. It's called a secondary pain response. And that secondary pain response is you reacting to the pain and sending more signals up to your brain saying, we need to react more. We need to, you know, send more receptors to let them know that this is more painful than it actually kind of is.
And you started mentioning about the Buddhist monks who are professional meditators. Now, I didn't think it was possible to practice something that much to where you become a professional, but it is a practice, correct? It's an ongoing.
It is a practice.
It's an ongoing process to where you have to constantly train, retrain, train, and retrain your brain to go deeper and deeper inside yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, well, with Buddhism, the thing that I actually loved about, there were a couple of people and speakers that really pulled me out of some of my more difficult times when I was struggling with my mental health. And one of those people was actually a Buddhist nun, who they call Buddhist monks who are women nuns. And so she was a Buddhist nun. Her name's Robina Corton. And she always talks about Buddhism as being as she does not talk about it as being a religion. She talks about it as being a practice, as something that she has adopted as a working hypothesis. That's how she talks about Buddhism. So you can, yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So she's saying that, and the reason why I loved listening to her back when I was, you know, struggling was because she didn't talk about Buddhism in the way that it's a religion as much as she talked about it in the way that it's a working hypothesis, where if you continue to meditate, and she has an awesome analogy too about when you first start to meditate, for some people, it can be uncomfortable. And some days, actually, you might feel some days like, oh man, I nailed that, you know, which you're really not supposed to say like yes or no, like really the whole point of meditation and mindfulness.
So you have to be objective about your own
oh, absolutely. Because you're not supposed to attach, I mean, and I say not supposed to, like sort of the goal, I guess is the better way to say it, is to not attach yourself to these feelings, or, you know, because once you say, oh, I had a really great meditation session, which you can obviously celebrate, but the next day when it's uncomfortable, you might be more sort of discouraged because you had such a great day. And you put so much weight on that day yesterday that when you meditate today and it's a little bit more uncomfortable than it was yesterday, you might feel more discouraged because you put so much weight on how well yesterday went. So that's sort of what I mean by like detaching yourself from like thinking that you did something so right or so wrong in a meditation. There is no right or wrong. It's you with yourself. Everything is okay. Everything is you know, whatever comes up is okay because it's you.
Well, and when I've tried to meditate in the past, I feel like it makes me really uncomfortable. I feel like meditation causes me anxiety. And I don't know if that's just because of the way I'm wired or because I'm not transferring the thoughts to where they need to be focused to.
No, and you know what? And I love it.
And if I may, is it a lack of thinking? Is it just clearing your mind totally? Or is it focusing on one thing and blocking everything out?
That's one of the most common misconceptions of meditation, is that's why I think people get discouraged when they meditate, because they think that you're not supposed to be thinking of anything. They think that it's supposed to be completely silent and that you're supposed to just be completely peaceful. And really, that's not it. It's about bringing your attention to the breath, or bringing your attention to XYZ, like whatever it is that it may be my voice or the person who's helping, guide you through the meditation. But really I use the breath as my focal point. So I'll use that just from here on out. If I say, like, the point is to bring it back to your breath. And also another really important point about meditation is thoughts are going to pop up when you are sitting there meditating or laying there, or whatever is most comfortable for you. When the thoughts pop up, the beauty of this, and like the whole point of this, is to not associate with them. You don't say good, you don't say bad, you don't say this is a good thing, this is a bad thing. You just look at them almost as an outsider, and then you just allow them to pass when they want to pass. You don't try to do anything with the thoughts. That's the biggest, and in my opinion, for someone who suffers with OCD, one of the biggest things that people with OCD have is intrusive thoughts. So it's a thought that's unwanted. And sometimes, the obsessive part of it is that we obsess over that thought over and over and over again, and we can't get it out of our minds. Well, one of the most beautiful things I learned through meditation was when those thoughts pop up, I don't say it's good, it's bad. I don't associate with it. And I just let it be there. As uncomfortable as it is, I just let it be there, and I watch it as if I'm watching it as an outsider. And eventually it will leave on its own, as long as
So you acknowledge it and you don't ignore it.
You don't ignore it.
You say, hey, look, this is what you are. I'm not going to say whether or not you're a positive or negative influence on me, but at the end of the day, you're not associated with what I'm focused on right now.
Exactly. And it's just, okay, that's a thought. And the way I sometimes do this, just because, like I said, I'm so visual, such a visual person, I will go out and look at the sky when there's clouds in the sky, and I see if some clouds move very quickly through the sky. Mm-hmm. Some clouds move really slowly. Some clouds will sit there and it looks like they're not moving, but then all of a sudden, if you look back up in 5 minutes, they've kind of moved a little bit. That's just like thoughts. So it will move eventually, but you can't force it, because the minute you try to label it, the minute you try to force it to get out of your mind, your brain is going to want to really focus on that, because they're going, wait, why don't you want to think about it? It's like me telling you, don't think of a white elephant right now. That's all you're going to think about.
The only thing you're going to think about. It's like telling a kid not to chew on a toy, or telling a
right. And so that's, And I wanted to tell you about the uncomfortable piece of it. That Buddhist monk, Robina Corton, she has a great metaphor for this, where she says, sometimes you feel uncomfortable when you start to meditate, because what you're doing is you're essentially pulling the weeds out. You're kind of pulling all of that stuff, the weeds out, so that new flowers can grow. And so once you get past that point of I feel uncomfortable because I have all these thoughts popping up. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? And, if it's very quiet, have I been here for 3 minutes already? Like, you have a lot of thoughts when you sit there, and that's okay. It's all okay. As long as you bring it back to your breath and go, oh, I've been wandering for a while. Let me make sure I'm coming back to my breath. You do that enough times. Yeah, sometimes uncomfortable things come up, but once you kind of pull those weeds out, new beautiful flowers can grow, and you'll get to a point in your meditation practice where it's not uncomfortable anymore. Some days it might be, because your life is changing constantly. You're looking at things. When you go on on a trip or something, you're seeing things that may be triggering an uncomfortable thought in your mind that you may not even be associating with yet. But when you're in meditation mode, all of a sudden that comes up, and you go, where the hell did that come from? And it's because you're being, there's things that we're seeing constantly throughout the day that are really affecting our thoughts and really influencing our thoughts too.
So right now, could you do a 1-minute guided meditation for me?
Oh my goodness, put me on the spot. Yes, I can do that. Oh, I hope it's okay. I was not prepared at all.
I would totally want it.
Okay, so let me actually.
You have your scripts pulled up?
I was going to say.
I'm putting you on the spot.
You put me right on the spot, but that is okay, because I just want to make sure, if this is your first one, I want to do it right.
This is my first guided meditation. I've tried doing it myself and sitting alone, and the only thing I think about is my comedy routines and all the jokes that I told myself 3 hours ago that I forgot. They all start coming in, and then I start laughing, and then I can't.
All right, so let's do it. Let me see. I just want to pull up a little something to just guide myself, because I want to make sure you have a good experience here.
Okay. And are these guided meditations available on your YouTube page?
Yes, I have everything from a 1-minute meditation, 5 minutes. I've got visualization. So that sort of concept of walking you through like a garden or a really beautiful like winterscape. If you're a visual person, like I am, those are super helpful. And they'll keep coming too. I've got lots of material. I'm very excited to to
Oh,
um, to share. Yeah. So the 1-minute
that,
meditation is
that
by
is
far
Journey to Peace on YouTube.
journey to peace, because we're going towards peace is sort of my thought process.
But can you reach peace and then throw it to the wind?
I think that you can reach peace some days. And I think some days it's harder to reach peace, but I think through meditation, some days you feel very, very peaceful in those 5 minutes. And then throughout the day, you have to just keep reminding yourself of that feeling that you felt when you did reach peace.
So it's like medicine. It's a practice. You have to
Yeah.
constantly practice it.
Yeah, I'm not promising that you will reach this like sort of blissful state of peace and that you'll never have stress again. That's not sort of the point of being a human either, like that's kind of
Yeah.
what makes that's kind of what makes life, is sort of going through these things and navigating them. But yeah, so okay, let's do our 1-minute meditation. Okay, so it's about 1:11 here in Atlanta.
Okay, it is 10:11 here in LA. I've got my, oh shit, the chair reclines. I forgot.
Okay, we need to get your chair. Yeah.
All right, we're good.
So
So what
the
do you
best
need me
way
to
to kind
do?
of start, and you just sit and make sure that your shoulders are sort of, I like to like pull them up to my ears and then let them melt back just so that you're sitting up really nice and straight. And then when they melt back, it's really good for your chest to be nice and open so that you can breathe very, very fully. And so just whenever you're ready, you can let your eyes close and just make sure that you're keeping your spine straight and your chest is open. And then just begin breathing with absolute full awareness. So you can take notice of the sounds that you hear in your environment. You can take notice of any smells you may be smelling and just breathe normally. And then I want you to take a really big inhale and just really be aware when you take this inhale of what's happening in your body. And just one more big inhale and really go inward. Think about what's going on in your body. And then on the exhale, exhale softness, allowing your shoulders, your neck, and jaw to relax. Inhale while fully focusing on your breath, noticing the sensations as you breathe into your body. And then on the exhale, just soften, open, and be present. So just notice anything that's going around in your environment. Everything's okay. And then as you inhale on your next inhale, feel what's happening in your body from the bottom of your spine all the way to your stomach and chest, heart and throat, eyebrows, and the top of your head. And then just breathe into any sensations you find. So if there's any pain, just breathe into it. And just allow your body to soften and relax on every exhale. And when you're ready, you can slowly bring your awareness back to the present and open your eyes.
All right, it works. Well, no, the thing that I noticed, and it's weird for me because I'm trying to be consciously aware of what's happening, but I'm also trying to remove all that awareness, but focus at the same time. The thing that I noticed, see, I'm the Cuban cowboy. You made me take my hat off.
Wow!
You're the second person that made me take my hat off. The thing that I noticed was I hear everything and I smell everything,
Right.
but I don't recognize it. I just think that, okay, that's the environment that I'm in, but I don't focus on it. But when you close your eyes and you breathe, and you're not interacting with it, then it interacts with you.
And it kind of makes you feel bigger than like that, what you just said, sometimes when I'm in that state where something about what you just, how you phrased that just now made me remember sometimes when I'm in that state where I'm actually hearing things around me and I'm noticing it, but I'm not interacting with it. Like you said, it almost makes you feel like you're a part of the space. Like you are bigger. You're not just this, there's just so much more, I guess, is what I feel when I recognize my environment, but I don't really associate with it. It's kind of an interesting feeling that happens.
Yeah, it's very unique. It's kind of almost like removing yourself from the chair that you're sitting in and putting yourself next to what you're hearing, or putting yourself next to what you're smelling, and almost being there instead of being right here.
Yeah. To
It's,
me, it makes me feel like, yeah, I'm
okay, so my skepticism has been removed. I had a guided meditation. I transferred my breaths. I challenged myself. Shannon, I don't know what to say.
That's amazing. I
You
mean,
know me, I'm not speechless ever.
no, you certainly aren't. No, you were so receptive too. I mean, honestly, the fact that you got right into it and you sat up straight and you were so open to it, I think that is part of it. Is that is as skeptical as you are or were, I love that you were open to it. You immediately, sat up straight and you immediately closed your eyes and I saw that you got into it. And so that speaks a lot to you to be so open to something that you were very skeptical about. That's part of it. I think that if you don't think it's going to work, then it may never work.
Well, and I don't want to be ignorant. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to commit to it and I'm going to try to it.
That
But
was really great.
again, with your guidance, that's, I think that helped me relieve some of the skepticism that I had. Now, on your YouTube page, you have a post, and I want to bring it up here about science behind the Sunday blues. And I was curious because usually Sundays are usually kind of a fun day. And so I want to talk a little bit about the Sunday blues and what the Sunday blues means to you, because Sunday to me, Sunday is fun day. You can kind of relax a little bit. For those who are religious, it's a day of rest and prayer. So talk to me a little bit about the Sunday blues.
Yeah, so that was a concept that was new to me, that was brought to me by one of my subscribers, which, by the way, I am open to, and I've said it in a couple of my videos, if people have concepts that they want me to dig into and find the science behind it, happy to do it because it's so interesting to me. And so one of my subscribers told me about the Sunday blues, and I said, what is that? And so I started, because to me, I'm with you. Sunday's like a time where we relax and I go on my hike or
Off
whatever.
day.
It's still an off day. Well, turns out I looked it up and I did a lot of research around it. There's the majority of the population around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. People start to get anxiety around the workday the next day. They start to feel guilty that maybe they didn't take advantage of their weekend. They start to feel maybe they drank too much. Maybe they, should have done this or that because now the weekend's coming to an end. And, in a few short hours, they're going to have to go right back to work. And I even did some research about like, well, does that mean that you hate your job? Like, maybe that's what it is. And it's not even, it has nothing to do with how happy you are and fulfilled at your current job. It has everything to do with you sort of going back on the or sort of like replaying the weekend and making sure that you took advantage of it all. And did you rest enough, or did you drink too much, or did you say something weird and what's going to happen tomorrow? Now I have to go back to work tomorrow. And it's a real thing that happens to the majority of the population, which now I'm more aware of it, but I don't think I had ever personally experienced it, or if I had, I don't remember it sticking out or anything, but yeah, so there's that video shows the science behind why people start to feel that way. And then there's a meditation around it if people are feeling anxious.
See, I've never felt what's called the Sunday blues because typically I don't have a normal schedule, but I do, however, feel anticipation for the upcoming day and say, okay, this is my checklist. I have to do A, B, C, D, and E. And then I can sleep, and then I have to wake up and start my routine over again. So I've never associated it as called the Sunday blues, and I never had a case of the Mondays.
I know. Well, you know what's funny too? I think you and I are kindred spirits in certain ways. And that reminds me of how I actually like kind of think about my days is I think, I know for me, I get energized by the next day's experience or the
Yeah.
next day's like challenges and things like that. So I certainly am with you on that. Like I do the same thing where I'm going, okay, I did all my things on Sunday. I did my laundry, whatever it is I do on Sundays. And then Monday, okay, what's my calendar looking like? What can I do? So but I guess not everyone kind of feels that way. Some people feel like, oh no, I'm gonna have to go back to the grind of the weekday and my weekend's over. And did I really do everything that I wanted to do this weekend? Or sometimes it's the opposite of like, maybe I drank a little too much. Maybe I should go on a diet starting Monday. Maybe I ate like kind of poorly, that
So
kind of
that's the
stuff.
anxiety.
And then there's the anxiety right there. Yeah, exactly.
And that's why they should meditate. Well, if somebody does have the Sunday blues, would it be better to meditate that night before they go to sleep, or better the morning after when they've had time to kind of collect themselves?
I think it's anytime you can kind of, this is how I think of it. And again, this is another metaphor that I've kind of collected on my journey. I love metaphors. It's because I'm so visual. And so it makes sense to me when I have a metaphor. But anytime you can shut the faucet off before the sink overflows, I would say do that. So if you are feeling anxious right now because you're anxious to go back to work, I would say go ahead and if you have the time, meditate. Like we already talked about, Vinny, like you don't have to go on like a meditation pillow and be cross-legged and all these kinds of things. Just sit on your bed or lay on your bed and just listen to a 5-minute meditation and just kind of relax your body. So, and before that sink overflows and now all of a sudden you're stressed, you're anxious, you're not feeling excited about the next day, just cut that faucet off before the sink overflows.
I love that. That is, I had to put it in the chat because, and I took a screenshot of it because I think that's going to be, that's going to be something that I relate to because I'm, I'm someone that says, in life, you have a bucket and you have an experience bucket and you have a luck bucket, and you have to fill up your experience bucket before your luck bucket runs out.
Oh, I like that.
But in the process, you have to be careful in filling up your experiences because obviously there can be negative effects to those experiences. But your shut the faucet off before the sink overflows is a great metaphor.
That's how I think.
It gets me giddy. Like when I
I
hear
love it.
stupid things like that, because I studied language for a long time.
Oh, cool.
I know Dutch Wellerisms and all kinds of crazy stuff. So for little things like that just kind of put a little kink, it brightens my day.
I agree. Oh, I love that. I love that. I mean, in fact, here's the thing too, and this is something that I wanted to make sure was super clear on my Instagram, on the Journey to Peace YouTube channel, is that it's called a journey for a reason. And that yes, I have found so much peace from where I started. But that is not to say that right before we got on this call, I did a meditation because I was feeling anxious. I was going, oh my gosh, I need to make sure I say the right thing. I need to do that. It's human nature. And so I did a meditation. I shut the sink off before it overflowed. And so that I could come in and be calm and be myself and be sort of trusting enough to kind of just talk to you, instead of like feeling anxious about what if I said this, what if I don't say this, and that kind of thing. So that's a perfect example of I went out there and I just did a 5-minute meditation and I just calmed myself down.
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me because we talked a lot. I mean, we sent a lot of messages back and forth in anticipation of this conversation. And I could feel like there was some unsteadiness on your end. And me, I wanted to make sure that I was clear with how the show was going to be portrayed to make sure that we shine the light on you properly.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with, first, it's that I'm sort of used to being the leader in all aspects of my life. I'm a leader in my professional life, and with my YouTube channel, I'm the director, the talent, the writer, the everything. With our comedy, it's all you. You write your material, you go up on stage, you deliver it. So it's uncomfortable for me, and I can say that because again, one of the things that I wanted to commit to this year it was sort of a personal challenge for me, was to bring my authentic self to the table any chance I got, because I wasn't so great at that. I had this kind of, you know, like you said, like sort of like, I think when people have like if they're charismatic, it's usually because they're kind of like playing to the crowd a little bit, like in the crowd being people that they're talking to. Even it doesn't have to be an audience, but just and I made a commitment to bring my authentic self to the table any chance I got. And so I put myself in these opportunities, and I get excited about it, but then it's like, oh, I have no control. Or like I need to be comfortable in the gray. I need to be comfortable with trusting this person, that they're gonna have my best interest. And that's something that I definitely work on as a person. And I'm a work in progress 100%. And I'm always looking for areas of where I can improve. And that is definitely one of them, is like being able to kind of let go of control and let someone else drive for once.
Yeah, that's one thing professionally and personally that I've always challenged myself with, is that I know I can do it, and I know that it's going to get done right if I do it, but I also have to trust the people around me, and be able to say, hey, look, I trust you to do this task. I know it hurts me, but I have to say, you know what? I believe that you can do it. And at that point, it's more of a trust and review kind of process, where I believe they can do it, and then I circle behind and just make sure that it's done properly.
Double check. Yeah.
And if it's not, professionally speaking, then I teach them. And I think it's a learning and growing experience for the people around me. And it's not for them to do it my way. It's because I know the proper process is, and then I try to say, hey, look, A, B, C, that's your checklist. Make sure you hit all those notes.
And I think that makes a really great leader, honestly. And I, in my professional life, I coach and try to mentor people into leadership, like going from an individual contributor to a leader. And that is one of the things that I say, if you're a top performer, so if you're someone who's just always, who knows, you made straight A's, or you're just like a type A personality, and you just, you know how things should be done. Being a leader, one of the biggest challenges that you have to kind of get your head around and master is giving others the opportunity to do things the way that they would do it. And like exactly what all you just said is like, if it's not done exactly right, then teach them. And that's the hardest part sometimes for people who step into leadership too, is just kind of going from collecting the gold stars to giving the gold stars.
And again, like you said, it doesn't have to be done correct. Well, it has to be done correctly, but maybe there's different ways to do it correctly. So different people feel comfortable doing things a different way. As long as the goal is achieved, I don't care how you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So on your journey to peace, I have one more piece I want to talk about. We're running short on time here, but there was another segment you had that was the science behind love. Now, meditation, love, where do they sync up? Give me a little bit. Give me the rundown behind your science behind love, because I don't feel like when I think about myself and focusing on one thing, that I'm thinking about something that I love that's abstract or obscure or outside of what's present.
That's kind of loaded there. I'm trying to think of how I want to approach this. So, first of all, the science behind love really intrigued me, because I thought to myself, it was around Valentine's Day, and I was seeing all these people professing, their love for each other. And I'm thinking, like, why is it that we fall in love with certain people and not others? Like, and why do you feel even like a really strong connection to some people, even if it's not romantically? Why do people get friend zoned? Like, that was so curious to me.
Friend zone is not a bad place to be. I did a podcast with someone last night who's my friend, but they're not the person that I'm in a relationship with. And the person that I'm in a relationship with let me do a podcast in their motel room with an opposite sex.
Well, there you go.
It was strictly platonic.
And you know what though? And like the friend zone, when I think of it, is one person wants it to be romantic, but the other person is saying, no, I just only see you as a friend.
So that's the friend zone. I just had a friend. That's it.
Oh yeah, no, being a friend, that's another thing, yeah. And sometimes you can, like I said, yeah, you have chemistry with people who are your friends, but obviously aren't romantic or anything like that. Exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, so the science behind love was interesting because, again, since I nerd out about what happens in the brain, it has everything to do with, the way our brain kind of gets fired up when we see certain people, or when we and all of it goes back to the caveman days. All of it goes back to reproduction, like how will my genes survive if I reproduce with this person? That's it. That's all your brain is doing when you become infatuated or love somebody, or things like that. So that was super interesting to me. Now, meditating on love, I wouldn't necessarily say that you would, you can certainly meditate, and loving kindness is an actual type of meditation where you sit and you imagine all the people that are in your life that you love and that you care about, and you imagine yourself giving love to them, and you imagine them receiving it. And you really imagine them receiving your love and feeling loved by you. But loving kindness takes it a step further, because then you imagine all the people who you don't like, or that get on your nerves, or that just for some reason you just don't gel very well, or they're always a pain in your ass, or whatever it is. You imagine those people, and you send the same amount of love that you just sent to your loved ones to them, and you imagine them receiving that love, and you imagine them really feeling loved by you. And it feels strange, especially if you're a little spiteful,
No.
It's hard to do that. When you first do it, I'm going, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm sending love to this person. They are so annoying. But it kind of makes you feel a little bit more patient with them. If you do it enough and you go, I don't have to talk to them every day. I don't have to really, be their best friend or anything, but there is this kind of, it opens your heart when you send love to those who you care about, obviously, but also those who make your life a little difficult. It opens your heart and it opens your mind. It makes you feel a little bit more, in my opinion, and from my experience, more patient with them, because I think they want to be loved just like all of us do. Yes, we may not be meshing very well, but they want to be loved just like anyone else. And so I don't have to be their best friend, but I can send them love, in my own meditation, just so that, who knows, depending on what you believe in, maybe it's just putting that good energy out into the universe so that, you guys can kind of, to me, it's just changing your perspective around it.
Instead of breaking the chain, you're adding a link to it.
Right.
You're trying to strengthen the bond.
Yeah, and you're
somebody you don't like, and for me that's really hard, because once I don't like somebody, that's it. It's through. The hat's off. There's a wall there, and you know what's going to hit every time they try to come in? They're going to try to hit that wall, and nothing's going to get past it. So, so that for me, I can only imagine if you were to try to do a guided meditation with me, I would just think, okay, A, B, C, and D. These are the 4 people that I hate the most. And for me to send love to them, to even acknowledge them for me would be a challenge. Because when I put the walls up and their name comes up or something about them comes up, it's to the wind.
Right. And that's honestly one thing that I've noticed, is that loving kindness meditation is not necessarily, in my opinion, or from my experience, meant for you to necessarily be that person, or to be that person's best friend, or to have to really connect with them in any way. It's more for your own heart and your own peace. It's for you to let go of anything that you're hanging on to, and also to kind of give you that perspective that yes, they've created whatever in my life, or they've created difficulties in my life, but I'm still going to send them love, because everyone wants to be loved, and I recognize that piece of it, even though they're a pain in the ass.
Okay. So that's the loving kindness meditation and the science behind love then.
Yes.
So it's not just loving yourself or the people you love, but also the people that you may spite or do not love.
Yes. And I will say that was one of the hardest meditations for me to do at first. And once I started to do it, I started to realize that my perspective was lighter, I'm like you, kind of, I hate to say it. I wish I wasn't like this, but
What, like me? You don't want to be like me?
No, in the way that I should have sped that one up. The way that you said, like, once you're done, you're kind of done. I'm sort of that way because it's just, I give so much when it comes to when I let you in and all these kinds of things. It's a lot for me, especially being an introvert. You know, it's a lot of energy. You know, you get kind of, and so when you give that to someone and then they, for whatever reason, you know, if it doesn't work out or they just, you know, sort of create problems and things like that in your life, you don't want that in your life. So you say, I'm done with that. I'm over that. I'm done with that. But to do that practice of loving kindness, that was very difficult for me to first do. But I will say, I used to imagine on my runs, and this is where this is also kind of like coming back full circle of like, you don't have to necessarily be sitting in a cross-legged position to meditate. I used to go on a morning run and I would imagine the person that was really difficult for me to get along with, I would imagine me giving them a huge hug. And I'm like, and it sounds lame, but it really, I was like, I'm just imagining like, yeah, I imagine giving them the biggest hug. And in my mind, I'm going, ugh, but I'm doing it anyway, because in your brain, you're almost like telling your brain, this person's not that bad. Like this person's okay. Like you can at least send them love, even if it's not physically, you don't have to like them. You don't have to be around them physically, but for your own peace and your own heart, I've found that it's nice to kind of get over that hurdle and be able to send these people that may be creating some difficulty in our lives that love.
Shannon, you are a sparkle. You are a jewel on the cheek of night, as Shakespeare would say. You mentioned being done and over. Unfortunately, we are out of time. We are done and over. We have had a fantastic conversation with you. I've loved chatting with you. For those of you who want to follow her on her journey to peace or take your own journey to peace, you can find her on YouTube at Journey to Peace or on Instagram at OurJTP. This has been episode 42 of the 101 podcast, where everyone is entitled to their own wrong opinion. Shannon DiCarlo has been our guest for today, everybody. Shannon, we're going to end the show, but please stay on after you say your little 30-second sound off. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. This is Shannon.
Thank you so much. God, it's been so amazing. That was such a great conversation. I really enjoyed that. I first want to say that, you know, I think it's important to say that if you are struggling with mental health, that please seek the advice of your mental health professional or other qualified health providers with any questions that you may have regarding, you know, anything that you're struggling with. There's so many resources out there. One of my favorites is just Psychology Today. You can look up, you know, a lot of therapists now have phone call appointments. So if you don't feel comfortable going in, I definitely want to stress that point. And then I also want to say that if no matter where you are in your journey, whether you're first starting out or if you've been on this journey for a while, please know that if you continue to practice meditation, things will get better. You are stronger than you think, and you can overcome this. And if you need a little guidance, you can always head over to the Journey to Peace YouTube channel for some guided meditations that can help you get started. And a lot of them are targeted towards some things that you may be struggling with. But I am wishing you guys all a sense of peace and positivity and love today and always.
And all the links will be attached to the post. Shannon, thank you again so much for coming on. It's been a great episode. Sayonara, everybody.
Bye.
We had a great time.
Woo!